Good morning, this is Janice Gunner speaking. I'm at the Festival of Quilts at the NEC in Birmingham. I have a booth where I'm demonstrating some of my techniques, and I'm here this morning to show you how I do some of my free machine quilting. So first of all, you set your sewing machine up and drop the feed, and I've got a special foot on here which is known as an open-toed foot, and I'm just going to take the needle down into the fabric once, bring it back up again and pull the bobbin thread up to the top of the work so that it doesn't get caught up underneath. And a couple of little stitches on the spot and we're away. And I'm just doing what I call my scribble quilting here at the moment, which is running the machine at a reasonable speed and doing little circles or little loops to give an all-over pattern on a piece of work. And there's one here that I've done earlier, as they say in true Blue Peter fashion. And it's this piece here. And if I turn it, this is my log cabin with attitude technique. And if I turn it round, because it's got a plainer back, you can see the pattern that I'm actually doing on the sewing machine. Okay. So we'll move on from that one. It's a good idea as you're working to cut off the threads, or you can leave them on and stitch them in later. I like to get them out of the way so they don't get stitched in. So we'll move on and we'll do a slightly more open version of the same stitch. It's just like a long string, if you like, with little circles on it or little loops. Doesn't matter if they're all the same size or they're all going in the same direction. It just gives a much more open effect to the work, which is what's on this sample here. Now I'm afraid the back of this one is very bright, so you're probably not going to see the design, but it is quite a pleasing effect on the quilt. You can then move on and do them closer together. This requires a little bit more practice so that they almost look like they're touching, to give a much denser appearance to the work. It's quite a nice technique to do, and sometimes you can fill in areas with other stitches, but I'm just taking the machine, guiding it carefully, not too fast, not too slow, but it will take a bit of practice. If you've not done this before, you need to keep practicing. And this is the closed up version. Okay. And if I turn this one round, you can get to see a slightly closer version of the same technique. And then we can move on to slightly more complicated designs. We'll move on to the dreaded vermicelli that everybody gets in a panic about, because you have to be careful how you stitch this one so that you don't get caught up in a corner. So basically it's doing wiggly lines and making sure that you don't get yourself into a tight corner and have to cross the line, because this is one where you're not supposed to cross the lines. So you're forming these funny sort of undulating shapes which can be close together or wide apart depending on the effect that you want. And I've got a quilt here to show you this one completed as well, and this one looks like this. These are Australian fabrics, some that I picked up on my trip to Australia a few years ago, and you can see this quite wide meandering design which goes in with the quilt because the quilt is called Walkabout. And the back of that one is very, very loud Aboriginal fabric. But I like using interesting things on the backs of my quilts. And then moving on to an even more complicated design, there are these lovely spirals which form a really nice texture over the quilt. But again, they need a little bit of practice. The trick is to start on the outside of the spiral. So you're starting on the outside, you're coming into the middle, but you need to remember to leave yourself a path to turn around and come back out again. So they don't have to be tight little spirals. They can be quite big. But again, don't run the machine too fast. You can use a stitch regulator if you have one for your machine, which will give you nice even stitches as you work. But I prefer to work without one. I like to be able to go at my own pace. And I like to vary the size of the spirals too. They don't all have to be the same size. So that's a little bit more complicated, that one. And then you can move on and you can play with other sorts of designs, such as instead of doing the loops, you could do little triangles if you wanted a more geometric feel to your work. But it's the same basic principle. Always remember to stop as you're turning a sharp corner and do a few little stitches on the spot, so you get a nice sharp point to your corner. You could do zigzags. You can come round. We'll just start a different design here. You could do little hearts if you were doing something for somebody that was a present and you wanted to tell them how much you love them. Little hearts. And again, it doesn't matter if the sizes are different. They're quite nice if they're all different sizes. And there you go. Thank you very much.